In today's video, we are going to discuss the 5 centre-back targets the club are looking towards as replacements for Antonio Rudiger. In today's video, we have a ton of things to break down, discuss and deep dive into. So before I get into anything, of course, get involved in the comments and share your thoughts and opinions behind some of these transfer targets and share whether you like the sounds of these guys to begin with. And of course, hit the like button. And before we get into anything, I want to get one big plug out of the way first. Today's video is brought to you by friends of the channel and OneFootball. Now, OneFootball is the app that I'm constantly using literally on a daily basis because it's like a quick source for me to get all the information and news that I want literally straight from my phone. So you guys, as you can see on screen, I'm going to show you some handy, useful features this app does have. As you can see, tomorrow playing against United at Old Trafford at 7:45. I like to come here to get the lineup news instantly when it's released, of course. I can use the live ticker function here to, get some interesting match facts about our historic rivalry over the years as well too. Of course, you guys, there's a lot more to the app than what I'm even describing right now. Of course, if you want to get even more curated information on your phone, use the handy follow feature. As you can see, I favorited Chelsea Football Club, which allows me to get literally all the latest news about this club from across Europe literally straight on my phone. Other things like looking at seasons, the squad lists, transfer rumour histories, etc, etc. For me, once you use this app, you'll literally use it every single day. If you still don't have it, you'll find a link below, straight in the description. And now, without wasting any more time, now to get straight into things, the 5 centre-backs currently being looked at are Pau Torres for Villarreal, Wesley Fofana of Leicester City, Gvardiol of RB Leipzig, Maximilian Kilman of Wolves, as well as Kounde. So what I find particularly interesting about all of the defenders we are prioritising and looking at is that all of them fit the tactical roles that Tuchel would want in the team. Now, when you assess Rudiger, when you assess Christensen, when you see how they play as wide centre-backs in the back three, you see that Rudiger brings the ball playing ability and ball progression from the left hand side, and on the right hand side, Christensen was tasked with pushing higher up to help secure that right hand side and to stop any counter attacks, of course, and to help the wing back too as well and behind. So they have certain roles they have to fulfill to make the overall structure of the team important. And I'm looking at these 5-man defenders, I'm seeing a balance of left-footed defenders for the left-hand side and right-footed players for the right-hand side. So all of these examples of players are excellent options to use as wide centre-backs, and I guess this is giving us indication that next season we are planning on continuing to use a back three setup. Now, other reports from Fikayash.net, even though they're not substantial, they have confirmed that we are also monitoring Fikayo Tomori and of course Mark Gueye, 2 players from our renowned academy, players that we let go for maybe values that were quite cheap considering the talent and their potential. However, it only makes sense that if we have clauses inserted in their deals of first refusals, of course, options to buy, etc, etc, that you are going to monitor these players and see how their season is progressing. Considering that Gueye is now an England international player and that Tomori is one of the leading centre-backs in Serie A too, knowing the fact they have a history at the club and they know this club already, they could also be interesting options as well too. However, I'm not going to talk about these players anymore. Right now, I want to focus individually on the 5 centre-backs to give you guys a better understanding about their games and how they could benefit playing for us next season as well too. Now we start with the first player that's been targeted, and that is Pau Torres of Villarreal. Now I do feel like over the years I've done many videos like this and I've constantly had Pau Torres as a serious candidate to look for in centre-back positions. So as this player has been growing over the years, having a very good season currently with Villarreal, it only makes sense now that he could finally get the opportunity to move to the next level and of course play for an even better team. With Pau Torres, there's a lot to like about the player. One of the best things about him is his ball progression down that left hand side. He plays beautiful passes. He plays a ton of outballs, which essentially means that these are passes that evade the press, and of course these are passes that get in behind any opposition lines. And when you're tasked with being the key guy to help the team play out from the back, you need to make sure that you are using that ball resourcefully, and there has to be some purposefulness behind how you're using that ball, because otherwise you could get closed down and you could really put your team under a lot of pressure. But on top of that, you guys, another great outstanding feature about his game is his progressive carries and progressive runs. I mean, this is a player that is very comfortable stepping up into midfield. And when you look at players who've played for us like Rudigers, Luiz's, many other centre backs as well too, one thing you need to have playing in a back three setup at this level is that comfortability, being able to carry the ball into midfield, of course, and be influential with how you can help us break teams down in the final third. So Pau Torres definitely has that. And I do feel like even though his defending is good, there's a few times where every now and then, of course, he can lose a 1v1. You know, he can get outdone by like a tricky winger, etc, etc. But when you're playing in a back three setup with protection around you, you can really mitigate and minimize a lot of these errors. But regardless though, what I find interesting about him is that I feel like he's more reactive compared to being proactive, in the sense that he prefers to cover space and hold his possession more than being the guy to leave his defensive line and engage with threats further up. So could Pau Torres be seen as a player that could even potentially play in the middle of a back three? Now we move on to the next player on this list, and that is Maximilian Kilman from Wolves. Now, for a late bloomer, he's really showing the quality he possesses in the Premier League. He's been one of the best young English defenders in the league, and that's for very good reason. 6'4", absolute monster. He plays on the right hand side and the left hand side as well too, as a wide centre back. And one of the unique things about his game is the fact that he's actually technically the first England futsal international player that is playing in the Premier League. Now, it's no surprise that his background playing futsal has definitely helped his development and helped take his game to the next level, because playing out wide, he can really help a team dominate the flanks. Playing for Wolves, especially on that right hand side, yes, he is a left-footed defender, and at times, you know, you can be susceptible to certain pressing traps, because, you know, there's only so many passing angles you can get when your weaker foot is being played on the opposite flank. However, he makes up for this in abundance. I mean, at Wolves, they like to use Kilman as a guy who's proactive, who's going to leave his defensive line and help engage with any like transitional threats, you know, any threats on the counter attack. And it's no surprise that in the league he ranks very high for a lot of tackles and balls being won in the opposition half. I mean, ideally, especially under Thomas Tuchel, one of the best things about his system is that it really like mitigates and negates a lot of counter-attacking threats. And when you're preventing that danger from affecting you further up the field, that's going to boost your chances of staying in games and winning them over the long term. So Kilman does possess this quality, and I really stress this. It's no surprise that statistically he's one of the best ball-winning players in the league currently. And on top of this, a fast defender who's very technical, who has that ability to, you know, beat the press, maintain possession of the ball, and drive further forwards in the final thirds. I mean, again, this guy has a quality, of course, to be able to work under Thomas Tuchel, and I think he's a very interesting option. Now, for the next player on this list, we talk about a target that I discussed in yesterday's video. So if you guys want to get the full context behind his game, to get the full player analysis, I suggest you guys click on the card above to watch yesterday's video, because I'm going to be discussing Gvardiol. Now, you know, reports are constantly confirming that Tuchel and his team are absolutely raving about this player, and if you have the opportunity to sign him in an instant, he would literally snap off anyone's arm to get that done. And you know, that's for very good reason, because playing in his first season in the Bundesliga, I mean, this guy instantly is showing the talent he possesses, and he's already getting a lot of leading stats, even though it's his first season in the Bundesliga. I mean, and these aren't just like, you know, unnecessary stats. These are the type of metrics that you want to see if you're looking to target a player to fill that position down the left hand side. He's one of the best ball progressing defenders in the Bundesliga for this season, and I kind of see him as like a RUDIGER region in that sense, you know, but maybe due to his younger age, he does have like a higher ceiling currently. It could reach a higher level a lot sooner than what it took for RUDIGER to get there. He has a very cultured left foot, and he demonstrates it all the time in some of the passes out from the back and some of the passing angles he creates as well to help his team progress out from the back, because him alongside RUDIGER, they are tasked with, you know, driving into midfield, of course, to help push the ball further up. That allows the wing backs to go forward, that allows other players to receive passes between the lines, etc, etc. And, you know, Gvardiol has the skill set that you need for this system to work for next season. Unsurprisingly, this has been a player that's been on the radars in coaching circles over many years, and now it feels like he's really starting to live up to that promise. Yeah, he does want to remain at RB Leipzig, but with an incredible offer. Could we persuade RB Leipzig to sell their star defender even sooner? Now we move on to Wesley Fofana, a player that I've given my thoughts and opinions on before, but of course, let's discuss the big positives about his game, because when he first broke into the Premier League as a 19-year-old, I mean, some of the things he was doing for a 19-year-old was far beyond his years. Of course, he had a massive reputation at Saint-Etienne, One of the main reasons behind why he even signed for Leicester to begin with is because they offered him a lot more money compared to the contract's renewal that St. Etienne were hoping that he was going to sign. And since making his debut, he demonstrated the, top class potential that he definitely carries. I mean, when it comes to engaging in duels, this guy loves his duels. This guy is proactive and he wins them aerially. He wins them on the ground. He wins them dribbling against opponents. He has great timing and he has great awareness. But of course, when you're very young as well too, and I think especially in defensive positions, you need more time on your side to gain more experience, because sometimes the ball's going to bounce in certain areas where if you can rely upon like a vast array of experience, you know how to handle situations in those moments. And I say that because even though Fofana does all the things on paper you want to see, he still has some vulnerabilities in his game. And I say maybe one of the key ones can be the fact that even though he has that back three setup at Leicester helping him, when he does step up at times, he can get caught out. And it's not by like any players. He can be caught out by really tricky wingers or like technically gifted players who are comfortable in like deceiving their defenders, doing like lots of like double runs, double movements, swivels in behind, etc, etc. I do feel like at times he can be exposed for his rashness. He can give away a bit too many fouls at times, and he can get a few cards and dangerous free kicks for opposition teams in the wrong time and in the wrong areas. Still, even though it's natural that he isn't going to be perfect, in terms of his potential and what he's doing for his age is outstanding, and he has the potential to be one of the best defenders in the league. Is it the time now to sign him, let him work under Tuchel, let him work under Thiago Silva? Or, as he's just returned back from a really terrible leg break, do we wait one more year to see how he does at Leicester first? Do we wait one more season for him at Leicester City? Or do we decide to take the plunge now and sign him this summer? Now, last but not least, we discussed Jules Kounde. Does it finally look like a long-term club target will finally sign for us in the next window? I think out of every player we've been linked with, I'd imagine that Kounde is the favourite by a long margin. Of course, he already agreed contract terms with the club. He was meant to sign for us in the summer, and the player himself this season has reiterated that he is leaving at the end of the season, and Sevilla, of course, are looking to cash in the player to reinvest back in the squad. So with Kounde, I can understand why the club are very patient to sign him, because in theory, he literally fits how he played to a T. And on top of that, this guy really is an outstanding football player. I think one of the things I absolutely love about Kounde is that technical ability. This is a guy that is playing in a back three for Sevilla sometimes, or playing in a back four. And then you'll see this guy further up the field all of a sudden playing in a back four. Do you know how comfortable you have to be in possession? How good you have to be on the ball to be able to have that responsibility from your manager to be allowed to do that? Kounde can play anywhere on the fields and he's going to look good. I just think potentially that right hand side of Kounde and Reece James, that could be like one of the best in the world. I think they both would complement each other's game. Kounde, of course, is very adept 1v1, and we know that when Reece James pushes further up, we can kind of become like a back four team, like a makeshift back four team, and I could see Kounde being like that auxiliary right back in behind. But on top of that, he is very adept at breaking forwards into the final thirds, and sometimes a wing back does need support. So I could imagine like these underlapping and overlapping runs made by Kounde and Reece James, and I think like defensively on paper, that could be like a perfect right hand side. Now his height is used against him sometimes. He does range at 5'11", but height doesn't mean everything. Kounde is a very stocky defender, and he's very strong and powerful in his own right. He has an incredible leap as well too, which he knows how to use. And it's not the first time that he's been targeted as that weak defender to go against for aerial balls, only to like completely just, control and take a striker out of games. So for me, I think Kounde can definitely reach a world-class level as a football player. I think he really has a great overall game. Amazing passing as well too, amazing defensive stats. There's nothing really bad about his game I can even say, to be honest with you. And just thinking about that threat down the right, that could make us a very serious team for next season. So you guys, on that note, I'm going to wrap things up and keep things moving. They are the 5 centre backs currently being looked at. What centre backs out of this list would you like to see? And if not, if they aren't even part of this video, state the centre backs you want to see to replace Rudiger and Andreas Christensen. So on that note, I'm in EFC, this is Blue Lines TV. I'll catch you guys later with some more videos. Cool.